What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Sonny Daniels. Here we go. Welcome to my channel, guys. This is Sonny Daniels once again. Like I said, this is a sporting channel. Anything about sport that make the headline, this is your channel. So today, we're going to talk about an interesting topic. A very interesting topic, actually, guys. And this topic, I have been thinking a lot about it. I honestly want to know your opinion on this topic. Recently, Dana White came out in an interview and said he wants to be in charge of boxing. I might get that wrong, or I might get the interpretation wrong. But what I'm about to say is this, guys. Dana White came out on an interview and said he wants to be in charge of the boxing world. Maybe part of the boxing world or create his own boxing community. If you look at UFC, let's analyze UFC. UFC wasn't actually Dana White's business. Dana White bought UFC from somebody and made it where it is today. That's a massive credit for somebody like that, for his resume. I mean, we all know Dana White as the boss of UFC. We all know he has already created Power Slap. We all know that he's a very successful businessman. But if you look at UFC down the lane, UFC before Dana White was president wasn't the UFC we thought it was today. I mean, then I didn't even know that UFC existed. I only know that there is boxing and there is MMA. And you know, boxing has been on the top of the power when it comes to fighting industry in sport. And there is no other sport in fighting industry that's bigger than boxing. So what am I talking here? Boxing have been ruling for a long time in the fighting industry until Dana White took over UFC. And UFC wasn't a very well-known business then. UFC was just an ordinary MMA community. I mean, I wasn't watching MMA, although I love MMA. I didn't even know that there's a UFC. What most people were watching is any MMA fight you just see. You don't even know the fighters fighting. You just watch MMA until UFC became the UFC it is today. And thanks to Dana White. I mean, the man has a strategy. And in front of him, behind him, he has a team who really put on a spectacular work in bringing that UFC up to where it is today. So Dana White came out recently and said he's going to be a boss. He's going to be in charge of boxing industry. Maybe he's going to bring out his own boxing industry, or maybe he's going to join the boxing industry. Because if you look at the boxing world, it has different owners. Every boxer has different manager. I don't even know who rules the boxing. According to last fight, I knew that it is the Saudi Arabia president that's kind of the one leading in the boxing industry at the moment. But if you look at it, Dana White coming out to say he wants to be he wants to be a boxing manager or open his boxing industry sounds like somebody who is really up for a challenge. Because if you look at it in a very long run, boxing went down until the Saudi Arabian president bring it up. I don't know if at the moment they are facing any challenges. I don't know if boxing is kind of losing its power as it was, because until UFC, before UFC, boxing was the best. Now UFC came in and surpassed boxing. So Dana White coming out in an interview saying he wants to be in charge of boxing is a very surprising news of me. I'm a lot of surprising news to a lot of MMA fans out there. The question is this: do you think Dana White is going to be successful ruling boxing, or do you think Dana White is going to lose a lot of time? He's going to waste a lot of time because he's not going to beat those people that are there. Because if you look at boxing, like I told you, boxing is not managed by one person. Boxing is managed by different kind of people. But Dana White, look at Dana White. You know, people wrote him off while taking the UFC as the president, being the president of the UFC. People wrote him off. People said he's not going to get to that level. And look at him today. UFC is one of the most watched fighting industry in the world, if not the highest in the United States of America. Apart from basketball, I think it surpassed basketball, and it's already surpassed boxing for a long time. So Dana White has done an exceptional job when it comes to UFC, when it comes to MMA, because now even the kids, even the young ones know who the MMA stars is. You will not see as Adesanya on the street and people are not going to take picture of him. You will not see Francis Ngannou on the street and people are not going to take picture of him. Everybody knows Conor McGregor because of Dana White. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Look at the names coming in. John Jones, Sean Strickland, Sean O'Malley, DC. A lot of stars came out of UFC. Those are the same names I've never heard of. But UFC made those people very popular, made them very relevant. Recently, just recently, Dana White created another event, another industry, another sport called Power Slap. I was one of those people that criticized it. I don't watch it up to the moment. Even now, I don't watch it. I don't find it very interesting. But you could see his idea. Nobody wanted to watch Power Slap, but now almost 500,000 follows Power Slap. People comment on Power Slap. People want to watch Power Slaps. Now Power Slap is getting to that level where people are going to start watching it. Because one, Dana White has a very strong team behind him. The people are well planned. They know what they are doing. They know that it's not going to be something of now that's going to give them success now. It's going to be a business that's going to take them a long run. People are going to doubt you. People are going to doubt them. People are going to do this, but they kept on going because they know that the same face they did with UFC, if they do it with Power Slap, it's going to work out. I mean, how can you doubt Dana White? He's a very successful man, successful businessman, managing over 500 fighters. And in the 500 fighters, 400 are well known. So that's a success right there. UFC is one of the massive sporting industry in the world. I mean, people were criticizing Power Slap, like I said. For example, let's take for example in the Olympics that just concluded Olympics. Not every sport you watch, not every sport you are interested in. But what do we do? There are people who are interested in the sport. Me, I'm not a huge fan of running of 100-meter race, but I love watching it because it came out in the Olympics, and because of Olympics, I start liking 100-meter race. I mean, I'm mostly on fighting and football. I don't like basketball, but I watched the Olympic final and it was interesting, basketball. So what are you going to say? I'm just using this as an example because Dana White has already done a tremendous job managing the UFC, managing the fighters, bringing a big event, the biggest shows in the world. Things that boxing couldn't do for the last 20 years, Dana White has done it in a decade. He has been the boss of UFC, he has managed the UFC, he has made it bigger than it was supposed to be. And now UFC is, if not the number one fighting industry in the world, could be joined top with boxing based on the history of boxing. But if you look at the success rate from boxing and the success rate of UFC, you will know that UFC has an higher rate of success in recent years than boxing. So what do you think about Dana White's interview? What do you think about Dana White's statement saying he's going to come out and manage a boxing? He's going to come out and I'm going to manage boxing and bring boxing to where it's supposed to be. So what do you think about that statement? What do you think about his statement? Like, honestly, I don't know, but I have the feeling that you don't have to doubt this man. This man has done it all with UFC. He has made UFC where it is today. He is bringing up Power Slap, and Power Slap is beginning to become a very well-known sport. So the biggest question is this, guys. I honestly want your opinion because if you ask me, boxing has a lot of eyes. Like you see, the UFC now is growing. It's growing. It's growing. This is the biggest question. This is one of the big questions. Why did you think Dana White is going to boxing, want to bring out boxing? Is it because boxing has a lot of eyes? Or maybe because of the stars in UFC are falling down? Which I don't think so. But what I think is this. Dana White being a manager of the boxing industry is a very good news for the boxing industry. Because this is what you could get when you become a boxing industry. You could have this mixed up fight between the UFC fighter and the boxing fighter. And it will bring a lot of eyes. It will bring a lot of money. It will create a lot of superstars, just like Conor McGregor. So if Dana White is going to boxing, you all should be on for a surprise because he's moving on to boxing is not because of UFC is going down. is going to manage boxing to even bring boxing and UFC into a higher level. What do you think about Dana White thinking of managing boxing? What do you think about his decision? Remember, UFC wasn't where it was until Dana White became president. Power Slap is nothing where it was until Dana White opened it. And now Dana White, being a manager of boxing, I already see something good. I smell something good. Let me know what you think about the video, guys. Let me know what you think about Dana White's statement. Remember, he's a very successful man. Like, comment, subscribe if you if you find this video very interesting. I appreciate your love you've shown to me. And I honestly, this channel is getting better and better and better. Until next time, guys.